host, Daniel Martinez. Can't even say my own name. Welcome to today. Today we have special guest, Mr. Nathan Brooks. What part of the country are you from, Nathan?
Daniel, some days I can't say my name either, brother. Say my name, say my name. Oh, no. Wait. I am from Kansas City. It does. I'm from Kansas City, and even though it's fall and the trees are getting rid of their leaves, it's like 80 degrees here, bro. So it's too hot.
80 degrees? Just give it
Yes.
30, give it 30 days. I was a couple years ago, I was driving through St. Louis because I have a friend that lives in Columbia, and I was driving through St. Louis, and it was like a blizzard coming through, and like, just stay in St. Louis, you'll be fine. I'm like, I'm gonna make it there, whether I honestly I regretted that decision because I actually got stuck in the snow like twice, and it wasn't very fun, and I should have stopped and just waited till the snow stopped. But I was like, I'm originally from Chicago, Indiana area, and I'm like, yeah, I've been through worse. We can figure this out.
Yeah, should be good.
We should be good. And no, it was like 15 miles per hour down the freeway for miles.
That's the worst.
Like a 2 hour drive took us like 6 hours, and I stopped for gas. I got stuck in the snow. I should have just stopped. But the Midwest is the Midwest, and don't underestimate the Midwest.
That's true.
Don't underestimate the Midwest. Snow is not for the faint of heart. That's my 2 cents. But on to business side of things. You're in real estate. I love talking to real estate people just because that's my jam. And can you give people like a little 30-second elevator pitch, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, of course. I've been doing real estate since the early 2000s, and we went through the bottom in every sense. Went through bankruptcy in 2009, and got back into real estate. Also played music professionally prior to that, so that normal transition of the musician to the real estate. I guess that's not normal, but we flipped 700 plus houses from 2015 or so to 2021, and we build and develop in South Texas, and we have a fund, and we have a retail agent team, and help people buy and sell here in KC, and we actually have a lending company as well. So we're busy people, and really focused in how do we have those vertical integrations in our business and the things that we're doing, and really growing our team to facilitate that.
Awesome. Let's kind of jump a little bit. Bankruptcy in 2009. I'm sure that was fun. Can we talk about like the struggles of that? Because I think a lot of people, they like the limelight of real estate and what it brings, but nobody likes talking about the downside of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people experiencing that right now. I think if there's a lot of high volume flippers who are struggling, there's a lot of individual people trying to get into the game, struggling. And so, yeah, I mean, it's difficult getting into something. And I mean, I've been on a bajillion podcasts and talked about the bankruptcy, and I wrote about it in my book too, No Quitter's Guide, which is, it's the same story, and people hear it all the time. It's like, yes, we made some bad decisions. We didn't have enough liquidity. We had challenges, and we also had a lot of things that we didn't know. And as I scaled my business post bankruptcy, we also still went too fast a lot of times. And I think for people to think about this now, we have to be conscious not just of what we're asking for, but what we get in return of what we're asking for. And so, that's something that I think about a lot. No matter how big you are, if you get ahead of your cash flow, you get ahead of your financials, you get ahead of your operations capacity, your leadership capacity. These are all big challenges. And whether it's too much or too little, they still create the same kind of problems. So, for me, it's just been, how can I keep learning from each screw up? And by the way, I still screw up stuff all the time. So it's not like I'm, perfect now because I went through bankruptcy. It's like, can I learn a little bit more? Can I learn a little bit more? Can I do a little bit better? And so that's where my brain goes.
I think it's a great point. The growing pains in general, that it puts you through different challenges. Um, can we talk about some of those instances where, like, at first, like, maybe it's hiring a sales team, maybe it's growing your acquisitions, maybe it's raising capital. Like,
Hmm.
can we talk about, like, some of those major stages that you can think of top of mind right now?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, all of them. So we can talk about acquisitions first. It's the front end of the thing, the machine. So at first I was doing all the acquisitions, and then as you bring in people, you have to have it clear enough and simple enough what sits in that buy box for you that you are going to buy. And you want your team to be able to pull the trigger on 80% of those things without having to walk them and talk about them and review them every single time, if you have a process in place, and construction team and these kind of things. And if you're not doing that, then you at least they can identify that property. You can go walk it with them, and they're like, hey, this 3-bed, check, at least 1,000 square feet, check, not on a double line highway or road, check. So you can make these things simplify, and if it's not simple, it doesn't scale. Not simple, doesn't scale. So and then when we went to the next phase of that, which is how do you fund those things? And so initially we had all these mom and pop single and lender investors who are lending, coming aside alongside our business. And so it was a huge pain in the butt to manage each one of these individual, not that the person's difficult, but just all that different money. And we have 200K here and 50K here, but we need 275 or we need 150, and neither of those blocks fit. And so we raised a fund. So that's a 506c debt fund. And so we were able to take all those individual mom and pops and put it into a single entity, which makes the management of that thing much, much easier. And it also, in a lot of ways, professionalizes your money management. And then you go into operations, right? And you need people who understand how operations work. And I think a lot of times the visionary person says, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at details. I suck at finance. And all those things might be true today, but it's also a big fat giant cop out. And so what I've just over and over, I've just learned it by the pain of of learning and screwing it up, and the recognition to say, like, hey, maybe we need to slow down. Maybe we need to find somebody who's incredible at this to help us.
I think having the not necessarily foresight, but knowing what you need to do and going through the pains of it. I think a lot of leaders, they don't want to face that pain, and they can always point the finger at somebody else.
I
Like,
think you're 100% right. And
uh,
it's easy to make an excuse. It's much harder to sit down and work on it. I'll give you an example on that. So for years, we've been very fortunate, and I've done a pretty good job on my online presence and growing social media and stuff like that. But the actual of a marketing funnel and a plan that actually generates leads and comes in and has people that are ready to go and or interested in what you have, whatever widget you're selling, real estate or doesn't matter, right? And over the last couple of years, we've worked really hard on this to establish a system. And by the way, if you're doing anything on social right now, you should just write this down. Just stop and write it down, which says every single person I talk to, get their name, their email, and their telephone number. And even if you don't have a place to put it right now, you don't have a system to plug them into, you don't have any of that stuff, put it in a freaking spreadsheet and start saving them. And, because the power is in having that capacity to market regularly and then run people through the system of the thing that they're already interested, they already want to buy, they're already looking for it, and they just don't know where to go get it. So, man, that was a absolute game changer in our business.
I will second that too. I knew that early on is you need to build your list day one, and a lot of people, they don't do it, and then you're always looking back 5 years in the line, like, I should have started this month one. And they're hitting themselves. They're hitting themselves like,
Yeah. Well, and we actually built. So I launched a meetup group first on Facebook, and then we were doing live events pre-COVID, and we overtook the largest local event real estate event in like 4 months. And my Facebook group exploded and we have over 13,000 people in there now. But for years, bro, years, we didn't get name, email, telephone number. And, you know, it's, it's an unbelievable thing when you look back and you're like, well, I didn't really have a place to put it, or I didn't really see it at the time. And it's a difference between seeing it and then having the foresight to just say, hey, I might not even have the tool for this yet, but I should still build my list.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Build your list. Build your list. I've been really big about list building ever since I started this thing. So I still have things that build the list even now
Mm-hmm.
that are out there, and I don't even push it, and people just come in and it's still building my list,
Yeah.
which is huge. I think it's very paramount. Um, where I think like this is what's the minimum requirement for your fund? 506
It's 500 or 500. It's 50,000. So it's 506C, which means it's accredited. And people can look that up, but it's, make a couple $100,000 a year. Does include or $1 million net worth not including your personal residence. And the fund just made such a difference,
Yeah.
such a difference. So if people are interested, they can hit me up on that. But it just it streamlines the management of money in a big way.
Is it the accounting or just the people management or all of it?
I would say it's both, because now, let's say you go $1 million and have, tranches of 100,000 or 200,000, at 5 million, that's 50 people, 100,000. And so how many deals are 100,000? Not that many at this point. And
Yeah.
so, you're having to marry deals and putting people together in deals potentially that doesn't work, right? Like the person wants to be in first lien position. Well, you have two people. How does that work? But when we go into the fund, now we can say, oh, well, Daniel, we have, $5 million fund. We have $1 million available to deploy. We have a $325,000 deal done, right? We can write the check for that. We can deploy it in the fund. And then that is just another asset that is, a part of that fund that we now owe money to the investors as a whole. And I also think it's from a risk protection. So if you have one deal that's not so great, which, they're bound to happen, and you have all that money within the fund, you have a much easier time. If there's something that doesn't go very well, it's not going to dramatically impact all the investors. But you have one, we've never had a situation where we ever didn't pay our investors back. So it's not the issue, but it certainly makes life a lot easier to manage that. This loan comes in, it gets paid off, boom. Now you add, that 200,000 back to the fund money that's available.
I hear a lot of people have like insecurities about the fund is that the legal SEC processing and the actual like people have like mental blocks of raising capital as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially large amounts of capital. Did you ever hit those, or is there ways that people you kind of overcame that, or is it kind of experience over time? You're like, yeah, this is the way.
Yeah, I like your Star Wars line there. This is the way. But in all seriousness, I would say now, and like I'm in the process of helping some friends raise capital for a really killer apartment deal in Houston. And it's, every syndication deal you're in for, a SEC instrument. And so, when you think about professionalizing your own business, having that means, when I could approach an investor and say, hey, we have a 506C, fund, and there's something that's really, I think, a strong offer to someone who doesn't have that. And you can say, oh yeah, by the way, all these other people have invested in it. Here's the returns that we've produced from our fund. And here's what we're looking to scale. And by the way, there's a CYA for you, which obviously when you sign a PPM for anything, right?
Yeah.
That's the legal docs. That's all the attorneys got paid, lots of money for. But in essence, what is it for? And so it gives very clear description of what the money can be used for, what it can't be used for, and really streamlines, I think, for people. So if you're thinking about that or you've been putting it off, man, I would highly encourage you to do that. And then make sure you have a finance person. Like we have a full-time controller who is awesome. He's amazing and helps make sure that we are good with the SEC. We're good with our quarterly reports for our people. And, we keep that money deployed.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. I think a lot of people, they struggle with the money part. I think the money part's the whole business. It's half the business. Is you get the leads to acquire and the funds to acquire, and that's the whole business. And then everything else is kind of the management and glue that keeps everything together. Your fund manager, your finance guy, your acquisitions team kind of is the glue that keeps everything rolling. But
Well,
it's the deal flow and the capital.
I think the capital and then your operations, honestly, because I think a lot of people have an easy time buying stuff, but they have a real hard time putting it out the other side on time, on quality, on budget, and have a product that, gosh, did my acquisitions price this correctly? Did they take the wildest comp in a not wildest house that we could actually create that? And did construction actually have a clear scope of work, and did they run it all the way through? And we were high volume flipper, man, and I don't miss it. I don't miss doing that. It sucks. And in our lending company or in our retail team or even in our developments, right? We can build at scale, and it's much easier to do that at scale. And so that to me is why we've shied away from trying to do high volume in that, because there's so many people who went and read Robert Kiyosaki and listened to 10 Bigger Pockets podcasts, and now want to just go do it. And let me pause. I'm not making fun of you. It's changed my life. I hope it changes your life, right? Whoever's listening, it's not an insult. It's just what it is. There's a bajillion people trying to do that. So, it was much easier for us to make a pivot.
How do you differentiate yourself online and across your business? Because everybody's trying to do it. You got to find a way to stand out.
Okay. I literally just wrote an email to my list today about
Okay,
this.
there you go.
And the title was how we got 100% increase in video plays on Facebook, and literally just went out. And I called it, so this is a new concept for me, a construct, and I use it and it works. And we had 100% increase on video views, and we had a 700% increase on our 1 minute views in the last 28 days. And I call it the columns. And so I'll give you an example. Daniel, you know who Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is?
Yeah.
So the things Dwayne's known about, he makes movies. He's jacked, loves to work out. He's sweet with people. He loves tequila, Terramana in particular, right? He loves to eat cheat meals on Saturdays, and he'll pound some sushi or eat a big giant cinnamon roll or whatever that thing is, right? So if anybody has ever watched him, we know what his things are. Same thing with Alex Hormozy. Same things with on and on and on. So the people with the biggest attraction have things that they talk about on a regular basis, which are their columns, and they can't just be about business. It has to be about other things that connect them to real people. And the interesting thing, so for me, it was like, okay, I'm Nathan. I love to help people. I love being a dad and family man. I love outdoors and doing crazy stuff, whether it's hunting or being in the backcountry or hiking 100 miles in a couple of days. I do real estate, right? I own a portfolio. We build, but that's in the real estate bucket and then the lending bucket. And so guess what? When I started taking that for real and making sure like, hey, if it's not in one of my columns of things that I talk about, then I'm not talking about it anymore. So I think a lot of people, like, nobody cares what you posted for lunch except for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because he's like, dude, I'm about to eat 10 rolls right now. And you're like, bro, how do you even eat 10 rolls? Where do you, come on, man. Like, so I think so many people are afraid to actually talk about the thing that they're doing and then ask, like, for instance, so you have your columns and then you have your content. And then let's say, for instance, I'm on a backcountry hunt, which I just went to Alaska. Well, I can use that video and I could say, man, it was so cool to watch my team operate and for us to be able to close loans in our lending company and help our buyers and sellers buy while I was out of town for 2.5 weeks. So see how I just married two columns in my own business. And now I attract the people like, oh, dang, I forgot you help people buy and sell. Or dang, I want to go do that backcountry Alaska hunt. You do real estate? Like, so how many times can I create those crossovers? And then lastly, and my man, Matt Larson, who's absolutely incredible at this, and he's an absolute stud. And if you don't follow him, you should go follow him. He is incredible at writing great copy and then having that copy connect to what people want, and then a great call to action. So if we're afraid to have a great call to action, nobody is going to do anything. They need to know what to do. They need to know where to connect. They need to know who to talk to, and a very simple next action. And once we started doing that and having a clear action, dude, game changer.
Yeah, we actually had Matt Larson on episode 464. Go check it out.
He's a stud. He's a dear friend and the real deal. So here's the thing. I think a lot of times it feels overwhelming for people. So you just start somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. I love the advice. I love the tips. A lot of people that try and I think it's being well-rounded. A lot of people, they're very one or two dimensional, and that's all the dimensions they have. And you got to find more ways to relate to your audience, and that's how you get more people.
Yep. And you know what? The crazy part is once we started incorporating more of that and more of the personal, we started seeing an uptick in a large percentage uptick in our other stuff too.
That's good. No, it's a really great tip for everybody here listening. Go check it. That's good. Take some advice there. It's good. Build your lists and be multidimensional. I think so far is what we learned today.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little about your lending side. Is your lending part of the fund as well, or a section of the fund, or is that hard money lending, or is that separate thing?
So the lending, it's called Arch Capital. It's pretty rad, dude. So archcapital.ai is the site. We actually have, so everybody wants to have like the CRM and go high level and these things running, and everybody's talking about AI and bots and all this stuff. Well, we actually have it running for real. And it's really interesting when you start to see how you can actually connect the dots for people where you're like, okay, well, my sales guy missed a call. Well, guess what? The bot caught it and responded back and rebooked an appointment or whatever. So we've been working a lot, not just on having great products, but having the infrastructure and the follow-up. So our lending company, people hear this all the time where they're like, oh, 20 years to an overnight success. Well, I launched that meetup group in 2015. And, it has now, over 13,000 people in it. Well, for years, I just did it for free. And I still do it for free because I love helping people. But all of a sudden I realized we have request after request after request for lending. And so I was like, dude, let's solve that. So I went to my local hard money guy, and I love them, but it didn't work. They couldn't manage the volume of leads. So I go to another guy, and he can't close anything. And then, so I'm like, all right, screw it. We're going to do it ourselves. So Arch Capital is born, and fast forward, we will close more than 20 million in loans in the last quarter of Q4. And, I've been working on it for 2 years, and that thing didn't really become something until May. And so we do both short-term money fix and flip, but we have just the most killer deal on rates for like rate and term refinances or cash out refinances. And so we've been killing the banks on it.
Is your backing, what was your backing on that?
So we have multiple different sources that we use. So the capital piece is not really the issue. We chose to do it that way so that we'd have a bunch of different programs that we could actually utilize. So if you're a long-term investor and you have a bajillion houses, then we have a totally different product for you than if you're starting your first couple houses and, we need risk profile is a little different or capital profile is a little different. And so then we can still serve you.
No, that's good. I think having the back end, having multiple resources in general is you're not stuck in one box, and you can essentially you're a lone broker at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then you're a one trick pony. And, I have a lot of great banks that we've worked with over the years, and, that really is, more like that. But for me, we really wanted to build something that served investors and especially professional investors. And how can we help them really scale their portfolios?
You gave me an idea. I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes.
I like it.
No, that's one of the things I love about podcasting. It kind of opens up new ideas, and you never know. You never know information is gonna click. And this is for listeners. You never know information is gonna click. I think like listening to things, and it's almost like very biblical. It's like you read your Bible, read your Bible every once in a while, and you get different meanings in it. I think podcasts have that same thing. So some things that might go over your head, and you listen to it maybe a year later, and you have more understanding, and it clicks better.
Yes. I call it folders, and I train jujitsu pretty regularly. And, you see the same stuff over and over, every 3 6 months in jujitsu class. But sometimes you didn't have a folder in your brain to put that information.
Yeah,
And so now it's all of a sudden like, oh, I've seen it once or twice or 3 times, and I can connect the dots, or I have a place to put that information now. And now you can integrate it into your game. So I think it's the same concept.
100%. What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
Jerry Rice, I'll do the things that other people won't today so I can do what other people can't tomorrow. That's
Okay.
one. The other one is the Man in the Arena, and I'll just paraphrase it, but it's Theodore Roosevelt. It's like, here's to all the men in the arena with the blood and sweat and grime on their face, who chose to go in daring greatly, unlike those cold and timid souls who never chose or experienced winning or defeat, and instead they dared greatly, knowing they could either win or fail. Uh, and I love that quote. It's amazing.
I have another question that kind of leads into this this line of questioning, and I just thought about it right now. But a lot of people, they who you surround yourself and who you uh, resonate with shows to who you're at your level. Is there somebody you're looking to now that you're reading their books or consuming their content or podcasts that you enjoy? At
Yeah,
a
there's
young
a
age.
yeah, there's a couple. And by the way, my son is 13, and he loves to play Fortnite, and he's pretty cracked at it, to use a 13-year-old term. And he was jumping. He was like, "Dad, I want to have a YouTube channel." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Let's talk about that." So, are you a consumer or are you a creator? And there's so many people that jump on their socials and just scroll for endless hours, and you're not really learning anything. And so my challenge to people in the front end of this question, which is, if you're going to go, following people on social, then have a purpose for it. And so I'm watching how people write copy. I'm watching people how they create ads. Gary Vee just had one that was a reel with an image and text, but it didn't have any picture, like a picture of a person. And I was like, dude, I haven't seen you post that before. I sent it to my team. Let's look at this. And so I'm not a huge Gary Vee fan, but I like some of his. I like how he structures his stuff. Alex Hormozy is one that I think a lot of people are talking about right now, and $100 million offers, $100 million leads, and man, think about those columns. Get jacked, get fluffy is what he says. Buying businesses, leading. If you're under 30 and you're not working 12 hours a day, then you're not working hard enough. He has some really great billboard posts, which is like the color background and the block lettering. He kills it on that. But Alex, there's a guy named John Cheplack, and John and I will be buddies one of these days. John has like 26,000 followers. He's a monster copywriter, and he's bought a bunch of horses. He's a great coach. to big real estate agent teams, and he just launched a lending company. He just launched a. This is free, John. This is free for you, buddy. But in all seriousness, he writes great copy, and if you think about columns in his personal world, like he's on his farm and they're buying horses, they're doing hard work, and he's amazing with his writing. And you might have heard me say this now 3 or 4 or 5 times, which is copy. So if you're not practicing writing, you're going to get left behind. And I'm going to tell you right now, currently, ChatGPT, Claude, amazing. I use it all the time. It is not amazing for you to write your copy, especially like on your personal page on social. It's just not. It doesn't perform, not even close. So Alex Hormozi, Matt Larson, we talked about earlier, John Cheplack. So those are the dudes I'm tracking with right now.
So I got 2 points with this. So I think number one is I think like I do the same thing. Whenever I was big into like content creation, I would follow just people and see what they're doing. So I think that's really cool. And if people, if you're not on that level, I love the consumer creator type thing. I think when you switch sides, there's a term that I've heard is you put yourself on the other side of the register.
Yeah.
It's kind of the other thing. Are you paying, or are you collecting? Are you
Yeah.
creating, or are you consuming? This is like that vice versa type thing. That is really good to this conversation. It was funny. I've never talked to my kid about it. My oldest is 6, and she's like, "Can you record this?" And I'm like, "Okay, let's see."
Yeah.
And then like for me, I'm not afraid of being in front of the camera. I've spoken stages. I've done a lot of stuff, but like I've never once put her in that situation or position. And she's like, "Hey, can you record me making a sandwich or something?" I'm like, "Okay." It was weird and strange. I'm like, "Yeah." But it's one of those things where like there was no fear.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Yeah.
when I made my first video, there was fear. Like,
Well, I think that, also giving them that experience where they're seeing their dad doing podcasts or, being on stage or whatever. And same for mine. I love speaking from stage. I made my living playing music. So since I was in 5th grade, I was on stages and playing and singing and speaking. And, so in his YouTube is called Dab Crafty. And so we created this whole persona for him and this whole vibe for his channel. And, think about the gift you give your kids that too, which is, what do you want to talk about? How do you want to show up? How do you engage with subscribers or viewers or followers or whatever? What is their biggest problem, and how are we solving it? And I think over and over and over and over, you'll see that people who are not as successful make their problems their followers or their subscribers or whatever's problem, and it's the reverse. So your responsibility is to help solve their problem, and then you're connecting your life and your knowledge and your gifts and your screw ups, and you're giving them as a gift, and sharing all of those things for them to learn from and be connected to, which is in return how you get that connection.
yeah, 100%, 100%. There's something else that I wanted to hit on with your Sheplack, Sheplack.
Yeah.
So there was a guy I was following on Twitter for a while. There's a guy competing on Twitter. I found out he lived near me. I'm like, man, and he always talked about golfing, 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 and I'm like, I'm gonna golf with this guy one day.
Nice.
And he ended up being my main golf partner last year, and we'd go golfing all the time.
Love it.
Last year, he's been a lot busier this year, so we haven't done it a lot more this year. But it's one of those things where you put it out there, and you put, even if you don't say it out, you say it to yourself, and it somehow comes to fruition sometime down the future. So
I think
one
there's
day,
something really powerful about that. And also, I've messaged John and said the same thing. Like, hey, by the way, or like I'll catch a mistaken copy and I'll be like, screenshot, whether it's his or something. He doesn't have stuff that's wrong very often, but anybody, like if I see somebody that's has an issue, I'll send it to him. Like, hey, I want to help you, and I'm reading your content. So another dude that's killer at this, who just we also have a mastermind here in Kansas City, and it serves 6, 7, 8 figure business owners, investors, entrepreneurs that are local.
Hmm.
And Kyle Mallion is a stud and a business buyer broker, and he helps teach and train other people to do it. And his copy is unbelievable. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So if people are trying to get better at this, or how to write, or how to pitch, John's amazing at it. Kyle's amazing at it. Matt's amazing at it. They're all just world class at it.
I struggle with copy. It's one of my biggest weaknesses because I
You
just
know, I remember walking into my college writing class and thinking I was just, hot stuff, and getting my first paperback, and it's covered in proverbial and real literal red ink. And I ended up spending like the whole semester with this professor working on this on writing. And fast forward, many years, and I've continued to write. But Matt Larson started giving me some books to read and some things to work on, and to watch what works. And so, I think at the end of the day, when you start to actually do that thing every single day, like start writing, like you have to make yourself write every day, and then look at like what was the structure of how Matt and John and Kyle wrote today. And so I will literally go out and look at their copy. I'll read their emails, I'll read their posts, and I'll read both what's the start. So that the absolute most important thing is the first line by far. So if it sucks, the thing's going to suck. And then what is the body? So the longer that thing is, it has to reconnect people to be able to continue reading, and then get that call to action at the end. And then what is the call to action? Do they understand it? Are they going to do it? Do they understand what they're getting? And then the cool part with copy is you can practice on stuff that's not you're trying to pitch either. So
hmm
like write an amazing story about, something that happened, or somebody helped you, or whatever. And so you can start to see and develop that cadence of writing, and develop that cadence of practice. Because at the end of the day, you're going to spend the next 12 months, and starting to really get good at something like that.
yeah, 100%. I just I struggle with reading, so this whole copy thing is it's scientific almost. It's very scientific for a lot of people that take it that seriously. You have to
It
pick apart
is.
every sentence.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not that scientific, but I'm that obsessed. And you know what? I suck at reading like physical books, although I have probably 10 sitting on my very messy desk right now. But I realized I started going to Audible, and and I run my Audible books at 1.5 to 1.75 speed,
Hmm.
and that I was able to have the speed of the sound run at the speed of my manic brain, and that made a huge difference. And then if it's a book I really love, then I get the physical book and I do the audio at the same time as the physical book.
Mm, I tried that, but I tried that once on a book a while back. But I struggle with reading in general. But that's just
I
my
try
own
to do
my own
a book a
problem.
week. I try to do a book a week.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Where can people find you online? This has been a really good episode. I really appreciate all the insight and information. I think for everybody here, if you listen to this a couple of times, you'll learn a lot of different stuff about social media in general and some real estate stuff. And I know I learned some stuff. So I love having these conversations. So I really appreciate Nathan coming on. Where can people find you online? And I
Yeah,
really
man.
appreciate
Thanks for having me on. So, yeah, if you want the lending, it's archcapital.ai. If you want to connect with me, Nathan Brooks REI. It's across all the platforms, so they're all the same. And man, yeah, subscribe, follow, go check out my kiddos too. Dab Crafty, he's pretty awesome if you like Fortnite. And Daniel, nice kicking with you and chatting all things life, real estate, social, etc.
You know what to do, guys. Go like, share, subscribe. See you in the next episode. Thanks, guys. Bye.